What is going on, guys? Thank you so much for checking out this episode of the Musket Fire podcast on our YouTube channel. I am, of course, Sarah Marshall. Thank you guys for being here today. We can actually talk about football, real football today, which is pretty exciting, I have to say. We can stop speculating. We can actually see what they're up to and, actually talk about real stuff that's happening, which is exciting. I'm excited. I know a lot of people are not really looking forward to this season because it's probably another year of not great football, not a postseason run. However, I feel like I am excited about what they're doing right now and all that can come from what they're doing. So I think it's exciting. Hopefully you guys do too. And I think this first matchup is becoming much more intriguing than I think anyone was anticipating. Because when you see the Bengals on the schedule for week 1, it's like, ooh, I don't know about that. But we're going to talk about how the Patriots might actually have a chance on Sunday. Much more than they did probably 2 days ago. So I want to make sure I say hi to the few of you that are in here. What is up, Chris? Thank you so much for being here, my loyal watcher. So I really appreciate you being here. And what is up, Skipper? Long time no see. I know, right? I think we are... It's definitely possible. It is definitely possible that we are going to have an upset, which how fantastic would that be? Like, I don't care why it happened or if it was because there was a lot working in the in the Patriots' favor. I don't care. That would be one great way to kick off the Gerard Mayo era by beating a perennial Super Bowl contender on their home field. I don't care if that's something that people would be like, well, no, I'm going to take it. Okay. So before we get into today's topics, let's get back to Chris. He says this season will be a learning curve for the head coach and the young draft pick players. Yes, there's going to be a lot of, it's a lot of pressure, but I think that it's like it couldn't be a better situation right now. Like, I know people think that Gerard was kind of not put in a favorable spot to be a first-time head coach. And in a lot of ways, he's not, but he was able to get, his own staff. He has a brand new quarterback. He has a wildly different roster than what it was last season. Like, there's a lot that can benefit him to be taking over right now. So I'm really hoping, that we'll see the fruits of that labor and that, at least we can see that they're playing better than they did last year. Want to see the defense continue to play as well as they did, obviously. But seeing that the offense looks like they could be moving forward, especially with all of the new pieces that they have, that is like what I'm looking for. I honestly don't care what this season is. I would prefer that they won more than 3 games, which some people think is their ceiling. But as long as they look better, that's just the mindset that I'm in. It's not common. It's not popular. I get it, but it is what it is. Skipper believes that they could actually win the first 2 games. I appreciate you putting that onto the universe because I like the optimism, and I'm going to stick with you on that one. So, as I kind of already alluded to, there's a lot going on today. It might be Friday and kind of a dead day in the NFL, minus the fact that there actually is a game on tonight, the first NFL game in Brazil, which is pretty exciting. I kind of feel like that should have been the Thursday night game because how exciting is it that they're playing in Brazil? And the only way that you can watch the game is if you have Peacock, which is a little unfortunate. So I feel like that should have been the game. However, there's a lot going on for the Bengals and for the Patriots when it comes to the injury report, this was the shocking development. So the Patriots actually are working on the good side of this whole thing. Antonio Gibson is still listed on there with a hip injury, but when he spoke to reporters today, he said that He's feeling fine, like he's feeling good, and unless there's some sort of unforeseen setback, he does plan to hopefully be on the field on Sunday, so that's good. Joshua Uche and Vidarian Lowe are also still on the list, but 5 players were removed from the list, which is great news for the Patriots. And we did see that City So was already listed as out, so that is. It's hard to say. I would say normally that is a huge loss for the offensive line because City So has become quite good, even though he's only played one season. Last year was his rookie year. So it is quite disappointing that he won't be there. But I feel like there's a lot more questions about the offensive line than City So being on the outside, but we'll get to that. So the injury report from the Bengals, I think, is where things get a little bit more interesting. So we know that Jamar Chase is in the midst of a semi-holdout. He wasn't at practice for most of the week, and then he showed up, I think it was on Wednesday, and he was very limited, like in street clothes, not really doing anything. He eventually did get in and start practicing a little bit, but again, in a limited capacity. It has nothing to do with an injury, simply just the contract negotiations that he wants an extension. So he is listed as questionable for Sunday's game, which that, depending on how that plays out, is quite a huge push in the Patriots' favor, because if they don't have their best wide receiver on the field, okay, hello, like that is fantastic news for the Patriots secondary. But then it gets even better because out of nowhere, T. Higgins has shown up on the injury report. I don't even think he was on it before today, unless I just wasn't aware. And he is dealing with a hamstring issue, which has him listed as doubtful. Now, a lot of the time when they have someone listed as doubtful, that means they're not playing. And the fact that they now have T. Higgins as doubtful and Jamar Chase's status up in the air, can you imagine if the Patriots walk onto Paycor Stadium field and they don't have their number 1 or number 2 receiver? That would be absolutely insane. Like, they could not have a worse start to their season if they don't have those guys on the field. I would assume because of the Higgins news. I mean, I don't know, because clearly the Bengals are not really a team that appears to be in any sort of rush to get deals done with these players. So I don't know if this will be any sort of motivation, but if it were me, I feel like knowing that Higgins is probably not going to play, I would want to get a deal done with Chase as soon as possible, particularly before this game on Sunday. So I know that he's going to be on the field, because if you don't get this done, I don't see why he would all of a sudden decide that he's going to play when he hasn't even practiced. So that is a huge story that we're going to need to follow over the next 48 hours, because that really could be a potential humongous determining factor for how the Patriots are going to fare. And so we'll have to see what comes out of that. That is crazy, honestly. Let's see, you guys. Hey, what is going on, friend? How are you? Thanks for being here. Okay. Sorry. I'm seeing the Mahomes troll in here. What is up, David? Good luck to your Eagles tonight in Brazil. That's going to be a fun game. I'm going to actually watch it. I didn't watch a lot of the Chiefs game, honestly. I'm sorry, but I just couldn't do it, I just get sick of it. So, call me petty. That's fine. So let's look back at the last time that the Patriots and the Bengals met, which was Christmas Eve in 2022, which we know was an absolute disaster of a season. I mean, you could say that about last year too, but I would say 2022 was particularly bad because of the toxicity allegedly in the locker room, and the play calling from Matt Patricia and whatever was going on with Mac Jones and Bill Belichick and the offense and the defense, whatever. This was near the end of that season. So let's talk about this, which was a loss for the Patriots, but it was a lot closer than I think people want to remember, because when we look back at the 2022 season, all you remember is that it was awful. They lost more games than they won, blah, blah, blah. However, let's look at Joe Burrow. So this was at Gillette Stadium, which is going to be different, obviously, than this upcoming game on Sunday. Joe Burrow was 40 of 52 for 375 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and just 2 sacks. Let's hope that that will be different on Sunday. His main running back was Joe Mixon, who had 16 carries for 65 yards, and he is no longer on the team. Then we have the leading receiver was T. Higgins, 8 of 9 for 128 yards and a touchdown, followed by Jamar Chase, who was 8 of 11 for 75 yards. And then also Joe Mixon, 7 of 9 for 43 yards. Then all of his main contributors in the passing game, which was Perrine Asiasi, Wilcox, and Tyler Boyd, are all off the team. So they're going to have a completely different offense on Sunday, and it could be even worse if Burrow does not have Higgins and does not have Chase. So that is such a wild card, and to kind of try and figure out what this game might look like, we don't know. We have no idea on either side, really. The Patriots are completely different as well, just in a different way. Last time, we had Mac Jones under center. He was 21 of 33 for 240 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he was sacked 4 times. Of course, the number 1 running back was Ramondre Stevenson with 13 carries for 30 yards, so a really bad game on the ground. He also had Kendrick Bourne, who was leading receiver, 6 of 9 for 100 yards and a touchdown. Jacoby Myers followed him, 6 of 7 for 83 yards and a touchdown. And also Jonnu Smith, who was 3 of 4 for 21 yards. So, of course, we know Kendrick Bourne is on the PUP list to start the year, so he's not going to be out there on Sunday. We know Jacoby Myers is unfortunately no longer on the team either, and neither is Jonnu Smith. And then some of the other contributors, which was also Pierre Strong, which I don't know if you guys even remember Pierre Strong, but he was a contributor in that game. And he's not on the team either. We also had Marcus Jones and Devin McCourty each have an interception. Jones's was a pick 6, which we know Marcus Jones is supposed to be on the field in this for this game. So that is good. We know obviously Devin McCourty will not, but I think that we still have a good safety team, a good secondary in general. So hopefully they'll be able to maybe give the Patriots offense a couple extra plays. This was also a very uncharacteristic game for Nick Folk. He was 0 for 2 on extra points. Crazy. We also had Michael Pilardi as the punter. So that's a significant upgrade, because if you guys don't remember Michael Pilardi on the team, what was it, like, I don't know how many weeks he was on the team, only a few. He was awful. We need to be so appreciative of Bryce Behringer, because he is an absolute saint, okay? Like, thank goodness we have him, and that was a great draft pick by Belichick, one of the few in the most recent years that we can actually give him credit for. Chris says the 2022 season did not exist. Yeah, I would... Which would you rather say didn't exist, though? 2022 or 2023? Because I feel like that's a toss-up about which one I'd rather pretend never happened. I would really have to sit and think about that. Hi, Nathaniel. Thank you so much for being here. Do I miss Belichick? In some ways, yes. I do like this new era with Gerard Mayo, so it's really hard to say if, like, if things go badly with Mayo, is that going to make me miss Belichick? Maybe. But as of right now, I mean, not really. I'm glad we're still able to see him on TV. He's going to be all over our TV screens this fall, so he's not too far away if I ever need a Belichick fix. Not to mention, guys, he's on Instagram now. So if you ever need to see anything that looks like hostage videos, please check out Belichick's Instagram. All right. So because of this game, when we're looking back at the 2022 matchup, it was 18-22. Okay. So the Pats allowed 3 scoring drives to open the game, went down 15-0. It ended up being 22 17-0 at halftime. But as I said, this game ended 18-22. So the Patriots defense didn't allow any other points, no more scoring plays in the second half. So that just shows you how good this defense has been, because they were getting, I wouldn't say like annihilated in the first half, but this wasn't looking good. I mean, when you're getting blown out in the first half, it doesn't seem like there's any possible way for them to come back, especially when we're talking about the Patriots 2022 team. Okay. Obviously, we know that they did come back. They made quite a good effort in the second half. It just wasn't enough, clearly. And a lot of the stats, when you look at it, were not in the Patriots' favor whatsoever. So this, I felt like, it's one of those games where you have to say, okay, is this more about the Bengals falling apart in the second half? Or is this more about the Patriots having like the fire and the motivation to come back and try and make it a close game? You can make arguments for both, and maybe it is a little bit of both. But you know, it's hard to say given where the Patriots were that year and the Bengals, you know, trying to get back to a Super Bowl. So the Bengals ran 78 plays in that game compared to the Patriots 53. Again, totally in the Bengals' favor. It's 442 yards for Cincinnati versus 285 for New England. Both of the run games were stinky. As I said, there just was no run game for either team, which hopefully that will be different for the Patriots on Sunday, because we know that Alex Van Pelt loves to use his running backs, and Ramondre Stevenson is too much of a weapon to be limited to only 30 yards in this game. Again, we don't need that to happen. Penalties weren't terrible. I mean, they were bad, but they were bad for both. Cincy had 8 for 62 yards, and the Pats had 10 for 82. So it was not great in that regard at all. But the time of possession is what is another interesting factor that we're going to have to pay attention to this weekend. The Bengals had it for 36 minutes, 48 seconds compared to the Patriots 23 minutes and 12 seconds. Now, depending on how you feel about the Patriots offense, one is, you know, you might assume that the Patriots aren't going to have the ball for very long because their offense is going to stink it up. Now, while that might be completely fair, I don't want to believe that. I want to be optimistic. I want to believe that this is going to be a closer game. And if we're actually thinking about, you know, the possibility that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are not going to be in this game, come on. You have to, like, that is a huge motivating factor for this team to come out swinging even more. Like, we already know that, you know, they've emphasized their desire to prove the doubters wrong and to show that they're not as bad as what everybody is saying that they are or what they're going to be. And that can be enough fuel for some players. If to others it's not, that's not enough to like actually make them perform better. It could be, you know, too much pressure or something like that. However, you could use this, you know, like use this as motivation. I mean, you couldn't dream of a better scenario in week 1. You know, most of the time, this is when everybody is healthy. And the fact that T. Higgins isn't going to be able to be the savior if Jamar decides that he's not going to play, that's a huge loss for the Bengals. And even more so because they've already been talking about being in this championship window and they need to get this done, blah, blah, blah. They want to be a contender in the AFC and to be the ones to take down the Chiefs. So it's not a great start for them if they don't have some of their best assets out on the field. So we'll have to see what happens there. I mean, fingers crossed, right? That Chase decides he doesn't play or, you know, they can't get a deal done. He was talking today about wanting to be paid more than Justin Jefferson, who is the highest paid receiver right now. And he was saying that he doesn't want only a penny more, which I would assume I mean, obviously they wouldn't just sign him to like 34 million. Was it 34 or 35 million a season and they give him like and a penny? I'm assuming he's looking to get like 36 or 37 million a season. I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to see how that goes. I mean, clearly the Bengals are not in a rush, as I said, but Yeah. Chris says, I think Chase should take the weekend off. Me too. Boy, rest up, rest that hand, specifically the one that you got to sign on that contract. How about we sign it after the game? Maybe Monday, that would be fantastic. Stevenson was the one that lost the game that year. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, there was I think the Patriots had 3 fumbles and he's the only one that actually lost a fumble. So that was a weird year. Wasn't that the year where he was fumbling? Like he fumbled in like the first game or something, where he got put in the doghouse. I think it was that season. Skipper says Chase is playing. I take it with a grain of salt. It's possible. Yeah. I think that he's, playing a little bit of a game with the media too, similar to like what Brandon Ayuk did. It's like he's there, but he's not there. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? It's a game in hopes of, getting a better contract. But I mean, again, the Bengals have had the entire off season to get this done. So it seems kind of insane to me that they're still sitting there waiting. But we'll see. Nathaniel said, I think our defense should still be good, even though we'll miss Judon. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Let's talk about that now, actually. Okay, so we're talk about some of the biggest questions coming into this game. And one of them, Nathaniel inspired this to happen now, is who is going to step up on the defense in place of Christian Barmore, who we know is probably not going to play this year because of the blood clots that they found. And if we remember historically, David Andrews had a similar situation, blood clots in his lungs. I don't think we know where Barmore's blood clots were, so I can't say that specific. However, Andrews was out the entire year because I think it's more of like a safety thing, and obviously for their long-term playing career, but also just their life. Like, you don't want to risk it. So I really would not be surprised unless he receives like multiple okays from doctors. I would assume that Barmore is not going to be playing this year, which is a huge, huge loss for the defensive line. And then, as Nathaniel said, we also will not have Matthew Judon, who was traded to the Falcons for a 3rd round pick earlier this offseason. So that is going to be, I think, one of the that's going to be a part of the game that I'm going to be like specifically focused on, because the trade was met with a lot of different reactions from everybody. There were fans that were really upset because obviously Matthew Judon became a fan favorite. He was known for playing catch with fans before games and having like a really fun energy and just being really cool, like he instantly became a fan favorite. So people were really upset. Then there was also people who were upset because if you look at the pass rushing since he signed with the team in 2021, he has been the leader by like nearly double digits. Like, I mean, there's a reason why he was a 2-time Pro Bowler and, what was it? Was it 2022? I think he was almost in the top 3 for sack totals. Like, he was, for most of the season, he was up in the top 3 with 15 sacks. So, there's a lot of concern about him being gone, and I think that it has become even more of a concern because of Barmore being gone also, and he's the guy that stepped up late last year in Judon's place, and he got 8.5 sacks. So the fact that we now have like the 2 lead sack pass rushers, whatever, I always never know like what to say, outside of Judon's 2022 season where he got 11.5 sacks. It's like, who's gonna step up? The main focus appears to be on Keon White, but that is a huge question mark as well, because he was a rookie last year and I think he got 1 sack. It was, he wasn't really put in the position to really do much of anything, contribute much of anything. And so he's going to be one of their go-to guys for sure. But who else is going to step up with him? That is a big question. Like, is it going to be Joshua Uche? Are we going to see another season from him, like I said, of 2022, where it was 11.5 sacks? Like, that was an incredible year for him. Are we going to see Dietrich Wise Jr.? Is he going to step up? There's any of the new linebackers, maybe Anthony Jennings, because we kind of saw quite a impressive run from him last year. We'll have to see. I think that's going to be something to watch the entire year, but it's going to be a huge focus, I would say, against the Bengals, even more so if we don't see Chase or Higgins on the field, because then it's like you want to disrupt Burrow even more. So we're going to need those guys to get to him, and that's a tough offensive line to get through. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a big test for the young guys for sure. Nathaniel says he was sad when he heard Judon was traded. I was as well. But and I think what's going to make it worse is that he's probably going to go and absolutely kill it in Atlanta, and that's going to make it even more difficult to accept it, I think, because then it's like, all right, well, if he was on the Patriots defense, he would be doing that for us, and it'll be even worse if it's impossible to imagine it. However, it will be even worse if the Patriots struggle to find someone to replace his production, and he's out there out in the NFC West racking up double-digit sacks, getting into another Pro Bowl, absolutely dominating with the Falcons defense. So as great as it is, I think that it's fantastic that they got a third-round pick in return for him, because all of the projections, if you guys were paying attention to any of the trade banter that was going on throughout the offseason that included Judon, there was nothing that was higher than a 5th-round pick. And even the people who were saying a 5th-rounder felt like that was potentially too high because of his age, because of him coming off of an injury. So the fact that they got a 3rd-rounder, that could be a huge benefit to the Patriots in the draft next year, because they could use it as in a trade, or they could use it to get another solid player, so like that, it's one of those things where you kind of have to be like, okay, what's more important at this stage in the game, Skipper points out that the defense was still top 5 without Judon last year. That is very true, and I'm hoping that will be the case this year. There's just like a lot of changes to the defense this year, so that's why I'm like, there's more question marks. Like, they definitely have all the makings to still be that dominant defense that we've seen over the last couple of years. And I think in some ways they are definitely better than in certain positions than they were last year. But we still don't know, because we haven't even seen them play a regular season game. Sorry, I have like these like little hiccups. Skipper says, and Judon seems to run out of gas down the stretch of a season, which wasn't as not getting as many sacks down the stretch. That is true. That was a factor that a lot of people were bringing up as well, that they liked he was traded, because if you look at his stats in 2021 and in 2022 specifically, he did get double-digit sacks, led the team, and looked great, but everything like started to go downhill as the season went on. Like, he came out hot and whatever, and you expect that, obviously, because they're not as beat up and they're ready to go at the beginning of the year. But if you can't maintain that level of production the entire year through, then that is kind of a problem. So I think that was also why a lot of these trade projections had him going for a much lower pick. So but I mean, he was begging to come back in the 2023 season, and they just didn't let him. So it feels like he's been ready to go for quite some time. So that could be a huge benefit for Atlanta. Nathaniel says, I hope Christian Gonzalez gets a lot of interceptions for us this year. I do too. All right, so more questions. I got a bunch of them, guys, and the main one that I have, and I'm sure a lot of you guys agree, is what is the O-line group going to be? Because Gerard Mayo was making it seem like, well, not even making it seem like, he basically said they still don't know what the offensive line group is going to be. He doesn't know who the 5 starters are going to be. We know, of course, David Andrews will be under center, and we know that Mike Onwenu is going to be on the field in some capacity. We just don't know if it's going to be at right tackle or at right guard. We know that Sidy Sow is out, so he won't be at right tackle or right guard. Vidarian Lowe, who for most of the preseason and training camp was being used as the starting left tackle. He's on the injury report for an abdomen injury. So that is not great. Okorafor, we could see him at left tackle, but everything is just such a question mark right now. And I think that's concerning because the offensive line has been an issue for them the entire offseason. And the fact that they're heading into this week 1 matchup and they still don't even have that solid, while they might have the benefit of the Bengals being down 2 of their biggest stars, I really hope that maybe he's just selling it to us to make it seem like they don't really know, but they actually do. That would be a lot more comforting, I would say, going into this game. But sorry, I'm getting a text message. Okay. Anyway, so I'm a little bit concerned about this because the consistent changes that they were making and the experimenting that they were doing with the offensive line groups, they clearly hadn't figured out the right group to be the best for Jacoby Brissett, for Drake May, for Joe Milton, for anybody. So hopefully they figure it out sooner rather than later because, it's definitely just not... It's not a good look right now. Not at all. And then, of course, I've talked about it a lot already, but I think it is a big question, which is Ja'Marr Chase going to play? This could be, of course, all manipulation to the media and to their opponent by acting like, okay, Ja'Marr isn't going to play or he's questionable. Most of the conversation surrounding his availability changed once he went to practice and was actually like taking reps and catching passes from Burrow, because he hadn't been before that. So it was like, all right, they must be pretty close, or they did get a deal done and it just hasn't been announced yet. So it's, he said that they were close to getting it done today, still kind of playing coy about whether or not he's going to be available. So this is going to be something to pay attention to. He alluded to it being a game time decision, which it's definitely possible, but I think if they strike a deal, obviously we're going to know before that. So if they do, we know he's going to be playing. But it certainly isn't great that he hasn't been like seriously practicing ahead of this game. He's very talented and one of the best receivers in the league, but you're going to potentially be a little bit rusty unless he's practicing on his own time and we just don't know. But yeah, definitely something to follow over the next few days. Another one. This was one of the highlighted roster battles of the summer that I think most people were hoping was going to go this way. However, Joey Sly seems to have won the kicker competition, obviously, because he is still on the team and Chad Ryland is not. But Sly, as great as it is that he has all this experience with however many teams, and obviously he looked a little bit better throughout the summer, we need to see if he can prove that he is the right guy for the job, because they don't have anybody else. And I hope that we're not going to have to deal with another season of a kicker being a questionable, like a liability. I would like to not have to sit there and like hold my breath watching a kicker. And unfortunately, that's how it's been for like the last, 2 seasons, because even Nick Folk had a very weird 2022, as I said earlier, even when we were talking about the last time that the Patriots and the Bengals play, he missed 2 extra points. And that was not something that he's done really ever for the Patriots. And obviously he's now off killing it with the Titans, having some of the most productive seasons that he's had for the Titans. So Sly is going to have a lot to prove. We're going to need to make sure that the Patriots will not have to go for it on 4th down, because Sly is just not, pulling it off. So fingers crossed. I mean, he looked good. He was looking good from farther away, because if you actually looked at the stats, I think throughout training camp and the preseason between Ryland and Sly, they had the same number of attempts, I believe, and their percentage was the same. However, when you looked at the breakdown of like where Ryland was predominantly missing versus where Sly was predominantly missing, Ryland, it would be like this, the easy kicks, whereas Sly was more so missing from like 60, which it's like, I can't get mad at a kicker for missing from from 60 yards. That's crazy to begin with, to be asking him to do that. Whereas, Ryland missing a bunch from 34 yards, that's concerning. Skipper says that Sly was good. Ryland was a mess. I know, he really was. Who do I think is going to play outside corner with Gonzo or Austin? With Gonzo, Austin or John Jones? It's kind of hard because, you know what? I mean, okay, my gut is telling me it's probably going to be Austin, and we're going to probably have Jones in the slot, but they might actually be. We might see a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? Not experimenting, but like rotation, sorry. Because we know that Jonathan Jones can do either or. So it really depends, I think, on like if Austin is going to, if he's killing it and doing fine on the outside, then they'll probably keep Jones in the slot. But if he's not doing it, they'll probably just flop them, because I think they actually have like quite a deep cornerback room, and they even have a few, don't they have some on the practice squad as well? So I think it just depends on like how Alex Austin looks, because there were definitely times where he looked great last year, but in the preseason he was a little bit iffy. So it also depends on how they're going to use Marcus Jones, because he's going to be back in the lineup this year. So whatever their plan is to do with him, since he said that he was hoping to be more so on defense rather than get offensive reps, that is going to come into the question, I think, or the equation as well. Yes, Nathaniel, you're right. It was very bad last year. Chris, they might need you. They might be giving you a call. I mean, I really, there's people who are saying that they needed to have tryouts. Like, just invite anybody from Boston. Can you imagine all those Patriots fans that just showed up to Foxborough being like, I'll kick the football for y'all. All right, so I have a couple more questions, 4 to be exact. So let's keep it going. Another thing I think that we need to think about is how much are the rookies going to play? So we already know that Drake May is not going to play. We know that Jacoby Brissett was named the starting quarterback, but there's 7 other draft picks that they kept. And then we also have undrafted free agent rookies that they have. So Jalen Polk, I think, we know Jalen Polk is going to play. I think he's listed as wide receiver 2, I think. But under Douglas. But that also takes into Baker. Is Baker going to play? Because, he flashed a little bit during training camp and then kind of had a forgettable rest of the summer and has definitely fallen backwards under Polk. So we'll have to see how involved he is. Then when we look at the offensive line, because we don't know what the lineup is going to be, that means, okay, are we going to see Layden Robinson play? Are we going to see Caden Wallace play? I don't know. I think both of them have gotten good reviews from their teammates. Even David Andrews was saying, I think it was on his Quick Snaps podcast with Brian Hoyer, that he's very impressed with Layden Robinson and that he's very smart and very quick. So, and then of course, Caden Wallace has gotten a lot of praise from various people. And one of the biggest supporters of Caden Wallace is Louis Riddick. And so because there's so many question marks with the offensive line, I would not be surprised if we see him out there as well. But then it is also Jaheim Bell, the rookie tight end, Marcellus Dial, the defensive back, and Del Pettis. So it's like, how much are we going to see these guys on the field? Mayo said that anyone who's healthy is going to play. He said that in the preseason as well, but this is a regular season game, so they're not just going to be experimenting and throwing anybody and everybody out there. So it will be interesting, because I think it might tell us a little bit about how they view these rookies and their development. And, if they're going to put Polk out there, clearly we know that he's been doing great job. So I'm curious to see who else they feel strongly about enough to put out there early on, or even for a prolonged period of time. There's also the waiver wire pickups. Oopsies. The waiver wire pickups, which is Curtis Jacobs, Demontre Jacobs, Eric Johnson, and Zach Thomas. We have those, their offense and defense. Because of the offensive line questions, again, are we going to see some of these guys out there? Some of them are linebackers. Are they going to be out there on the defense, helping with the pass rush? We'll have to see. I'm actually excited about some of the waiver wire pickups. I'm very excited about a handful of the practice squad players, which let's just talk about that as well, because I was going to say who might be elevated from the practice squad. We already know City So has been ruled out, so there's a spot potentially for somebody to replace him. But we also have question marks at Antonio Gibson, Joshua Uche, and Vidarian Lowe. So that create opportunities for Jerome Carvin or Liam Forendell at center or guard. Kevin Harris could be called up if Gibson can't play. There's also Caleb Jones or Michael Jordan if there's needs for their help on the offensive line. And then we also can't forget about Isaiah Bolden for special teams, because they have raved about Isaiah Bolden on special teams to the point of Gerard Mayo even calling him, what did he call him? A demon, a special teams demon or something like that. So he was a shocking cut to begin with. So the fact that he's back on the practice squad is great. However, they could bring him up for sure. I think it depends. We're going to have to see. I would not be surprised if we see a lineman brought up. But again, we don't know where their head is at and what they're favoring regarding a lineup. So I just would not be surprised if we see one of those guys brought up. And then the last question that I have is who is going to be the designated returner, because they have not figured that out yet, which does not excite me whatsoever. That was kind of why I was hoping that they were going to keep David Wallace, because he showed a lot of promise, and I was like, all right, keep this guy, because like he was averaging like 20 something yards, I think, per return. And then they cut him and they didn't bring him back on the practice squad. And I don't think he signed anywhere else. I know that he visited some teams, but I don't believe he signed a contract anywhere. We know that they've been using like Marcus Jones. They've been using, who else have they been using? They use another cornerback, but I really think that they need to figure out a returner, because they can't be throwing people back there that are potential starters or like significant contributors on offense or defense. It's just not, it's not ideal. So there's a lot of questions revolving around that, and I don't know if we're even going to get that answer, because I really wouldn't be surprised if they're rotating people through as a returner. But hopefully they can figure that out, because it's a significant part of the game, and it was something that was an issue last year and in the years before. So it would be best if they could just settle that now, and then we don't have to keep talking about this as the season goes on. So we will have to see. That is another question we'll have to wait for the answer for. But that is all that I have for the week 1 preview for the Patriots versus the Bengals. Don't forget that is going to be on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And I should be going live to talk about the game, I don't know, probably within like an hour or so when the game ends, because I do have to work. So obviously I need to talk about whatever is happening in the game, during the game, after the game, all of that jazz. So I will be posting a tentative time on the Musket Fire channel for when I'll be going live. But please do not forget to check what we have to say on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at SMarshXO. Follow Musket Fire at Musket_Fire. And don't forget to check out musketfire.com for all the latest news and analysis about our beloved Patriots. And thank you guys so much for you too, Skipper. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for checking out. Thank you, Raw94. You have a great day as well. Hopefully I will see you guys on Sunday after the game. I really appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate all of your support, and hopefully we can come out and show at least a good game. Maybe we don't get the win, which would be awesome. But if we can just show some improvement and bring back some excitement in New England, that's all I am looking for. So go Patriots, says Nathaniel. And yes, guys, go Pats. I will see you on Sunday.